Okay. So, hi, Rajeev. Welcome to the Millionaire Way podcast. And it's amazing to have you on this platform with me, knowing you so well as a wonderful human being and a transformation coach, an entrepreneur. So, this journey that you've been on to is inspiring for my audience. And I would want to know, like to know how you started off with this journey.
Sargam, thank you, first of all, for having me here. It's an honor to be here with you. I love you very much. I love the work you're doing. And just to be on the show is really exciting as well. So, well, first of all, what can I say? As an entrepreneur, I also have an engineering company. And, so I wear two hats, right? So, and I believe you do the same, right? As an engineer. So, I feel that when you are in the corporate world, especially when you look at engineering and the right brain activity, we call it, for example, everything is very process oriented, and as a leader in an organization, leadership can be a very lonely journey. When you start as an entrepreneur and a small company, you learn to wear multiple hats and you learn to put your hands everywhere, roll up your sleeves and figure things out. And there was one mantra that I always used, and that was really bringing love to work. And that meant, creating relationships that were meaningful, that were based on trust, whether it was with my clients, with my team, with my vendors, and really appreciating that, that circle of stakeholders in my life. As the organization grew, and we started to work with bigger and larger organizations that were very process oriented, I saw the engineering field and many corporates around the world probably experience the same thing because, we start to follow more process protocol, and which is great because processes have its place, right?
Yeah.
But along its journey somewhere, you start to see, I don't want to use the words dehumanizing, but less humanizing of the workspace. And then you start to hear statistics globally, worldwide, where you say, engagement numbers are falling, to such scary levels that you start to question, corporates and the environment that we've all created as leaders, not only as part of corporates, but as a global movement. So, in 2016, Sargam, I decided that we had to do something about it. So I said, well, how can we inject, I used the word happiness at that point in time, although what I was referring to was well-being at work. How can we bring that back in? How can we do, what can we do as leaders, as organizations, to consciously show up so that we could create more engagement and bring back that love to work that we all have when we come into the workplace, that fire we have when you graduate from school, when you start your new business, there's that passion that is always driving it, right, Sargam?
Absolutely. So like you said, you are an entrepreneur, and so early on, your experience with happiness or your experience with these virtues that we call building trust. How did that started happening? So did you experience something in your own company or in your life that just drifted you or shifted you towards creating this new organization?
Well, you know what? A beautiful question. And I think that in life, you have to experience all the differences and the dualities, right? The adversities in order for you to understand the importance of something, right?
Yeah.
So just because you have a company and you bring people in, it doesn't mean that you automatically have an environment that creates trust, right? And you don't always know that, right? So I mentioned earlier that I learned that leadership's a very lonely journey. What I mean by that is that, a lot of times, you have the right intention, right? You want to grow the business, you want to keep everyone happy, you do everything that you possibly can in order to create that environment. But an environment is not created by one person. The culture is created by everyone in the organization, right? So when you see a lot of organizations that take pride in the 5 words on the wall that say, these are our values, this is our culture. And often the culture is established, or those values are established from the top management, right? And they decide this is what our company is going to be like. The founder is going to say, this is what the values that we have. See, what I learned was, Sargam, that's a great way to think in the beginning, right? But when you actually live it, you start to realize that your culture is bigger than that one person or that one board of directors.
Mhm.
It's actually the entire population, and they bring it every day to work. And
Right.
that's where you start to see a lot of the disengagement practices at work, a lot of the friction, the silo effect, the lack of cohesion. So when a lot of people ask me, how did you experience, or how did you come to know trust is so important? Well, it's because, you experience
Mhm.
situations where you would think that trust was there, right? That we all have, but then you find out that people were scared to say something, or because they didn't feel the environment was safe enough. And you go, really? How is that possible? Right? And you start to see that. Now, that is in every business all over the world. A lot of times people don't realize that that's the environment that's being created, right? And it could be created by one person, some individuals, at different layers of the organization, right? So that's why when we talk about culture now, and of course I know that I'm going a little forward, but when we talk about the importance of culture, it's very important to understand that culture is not uniquely created by the top only. It has to be created by the entire population. And that's when I realized the importance, after using tools, to put in my business practice, how important it is to ensure that the entire population of your organization is considered when we're talking about the culture. When we talk about setting values and purpose and all of that. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I think, we talk about culture in the organization, but if we go deeper, this is so much needed even within your homes, the trust, the love, the happiness. So probably, for a lot longer time we've been thinking there is a professional life and there is a personal life, but if we could create a culture that helps people live one good life, that is what is far more important than living in diverse lives and experiencing maybe pain and suffering just because they are not able to say things out or trust in each other. So wonderful work, Rajiv. And I'm sure you've been working with amazing leaders and through your coaching and even through your work. So what do you think is the energetic blueprint of success, or how can you highlight some of the qualities that are like the underlying foundation of successful people?
Wow, that's a very powerful question, Sargam. Every single one of us are individually unique.
Yes.
So the signature of each person is that uniqueness, that sparkle,
Mhm.
that perfectly imperfect person that we all are, right? And it's when we are allowed to live from that space of authenticity, when we show up as that person in this world, that we can start to unravel who we are and what we're here to do and how we do it, right? You
Right.
wrap that up with, some bigger reason than yourself, which is the purpose, right? You do the inner work and you identify, why, you're here and what are some of the things that drive you,
Mhm.
right? So that's why I think that if you ask me what is some of the key ingredients to success, one is the inner work,
Yeah.
going within to establish, just bring more awareness to everything around you, right? So I like to call it, I use the word conscious leadership, and people always confuse the word leadership, Sardam, because they think, he's talking about leaders only. Well, every single one of us is a leader in our life, right? We lead in our life, right? We shouldn't follow in our life. We should lead in our life. So consciously be aware. But that
Mhm.
only happens when you go within. So one of the most important things is to be able to go within,
Yeah.
right? And be in awareness, be conscious, so every single time we're thinking, we're talking, we're moving, if we do it with awareness, there's a different impact we can create through that. Two, be purpose led, have a bigger driver than the action itself.
Mhm.
Why is always more powerful. Now, I know there's so much talk about purpose, but to actually learn how to apply purpose into action is what differentiates someone who's more successful from someone who's on his way to being successful, right? Number three is redefining, the ability to be authentic. Now, what I mean about that is, being able to be vulnerable enough to show up, Sargam, to just show up, to unmask that conscious leader without the fear that you'll be judged, you'll be considered different. Whatever it is, each one of us have that unique signature. So why not bring that to the table?
Mhm.
And finally, the most, I think that one of the things that we need to really look at is, having the ability to redefine and rephrase and reframe some of the beliefs and conditioning that we all have got. For example, identifying what is success and failure. You know, someone asked me, a successful person, is it only about the dollars and the, and I said, well, no, a successful person is someone who's actually willing to go out there and do what they love, and show up as the human that they're here to, show up as through their purpose.
Mhm.
And that's successful for them. How it turned out is not important. It's the point is that, did your life count? Did you create impact? So I think measuring it through the impact that you're creating and the
Yeah.
difference that you're making, answering the question, does my life count, is a
Mhm.
lot more powerful way to look at success, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely resonate, with these 4 points, and beautifully put together. Thank you. Also, Rajiv, because see, there are days sometimes, you're on high energy, sometimes you're low, and it's for everybody, so life is never a straight line. So
Right.
it's during tough times, how do you master your own inner game? So what do you go back to, when it comes to being more composed, or taking that tough decision in your company, or maybe even with people that you're working? How do you manage that?
Again, a really, really powerful question. It's, of course, the ones that we all, I think, do at this point, is go back to our breath, go back, I do try to quieten that mind of mine when I'm really at a heightened state, right? So I get a little, if I get overwhelmed, I'll try to go and calm myself. But those are the things that everyone talks about. So I won't dwell too much on that, because we know how important it is to try to calm your mind through breath work, yeah, and to be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then I add to that, reaching out for things to be grateful for. All these things are great practices to help you, calm yourself down and try to build your resilience. But the secret for me personally, has been bringing my attention to the things that give me the most energy. In my particular case, it's my kids, right? So my children have been my turning point in my life. So every single time anything happens, I wait back to that moment, the moment that, that they showed up, and reminded myself, or remind myself daily of the reason I'm here.
Yeah.
And making it count becomes even more important now, because every single time they remind me how beautiful life is.
Mhm.
So my advice to a lot of people when they say, we need something to kind of ground us and anchor us, is look for that real big reason. See, your purpose is also very powerful. Again, even my purpose itself, why I'm here, why my life counts, what the purpose of my life is. Sargam is a very, very grounding and anchoring thing to hold on for me.
Yeah.
So I always remind myself, what's the bigger picture? What am I trying to achieve with this life that I can help? How can I be of service? And when I go to that space, it's amazing the energy that comes back. If you're anxious, it brings you back down. If you're lost, it allows you to kind of find clarity. And I'm not going to lie to you, there's times when we are all clouded and trying to figure things out,
Right.
right? And it sounds very easy to say, oh yeah, go do this, but everybody will have their own way. They'll all have their own little secret to get into that space, and eventually these are the anchors that you need. You have to find your own anchors, your own grips that enable you to bounce back.
Wonderful. Yeah, you're right. Because um, no matter how zen you are, no matter how much you've been meditating, but after all, you are a human being, and you have your own triggers, and you have your own, it's an ongoing journey to overcome your own anxiousness, or your own negatives. And like you said, coming back to the purpose, I think, uh, people think that your purpose is like this one big thing, but it is a journey. I feel, knowing your purpose is a journey. And like you said, keep taking that inspired action every day, and it will keep unfolding and keep giving you more chances to fulfill your purpose or your destiny. And that should be the way to live life, and
And it
create
should
that
be actionable. Sargam, it should be actionable. So
yeah, absolutely,
a
action.
lot of times, the reason why people struggle with this is because they can't action it.
Yeah.
So if it can trigger you, you see, and again, I won't share mine here today, okay? Just like that. But I will tell you that all I do when I reflect back at my purpose, why is it so energizing? Is because it's very, very actionable. It reminds me every single moment why I do things, and immediately I can ground myself. And when we do it to that definite space, it really becomes a great building block, for you to bounce up, you know.
Absolutely.
So when people need help with that, a lot of people reach out to me and they're like, listen, Raj, we want to work on that conscious leadership. We want to, how do we start? And it always does start with defining purpose, but it doesn't end there. You see, that's the thing, Sargam. The problem that I see, or the challenge that I see with many of us, is we try to disconnect us. We do one thing and then we do the other thing, we do a third thing, and we'll have all these different data points.
Yeah.
But we don't have that one line that connects it for us, right? And that's the part that I see the struggle with. It's not that people don't know it, it's just that they haven't figured out a way sometimes to create an alignment in it. And that's why I always talk about, I never talk about become a conscious leader. I always say unmask it, right? Because we all are, right, Sargam? It's just a matter of us finding how to align it. Make sense?
It does. It does. Wonderful. So for you, Rajeev, personally, I've known you a bit, through our conversations, and I know that you are, quite grounded in what you're doing, and there is a sense of knowingness, within yourselves. So what is your, maybe spiritual way of life? How do you define your own personal spiritual way of life?
Wow. That's a great question. I look at spirituality as, I think each one of us has the three aspects: the physical, the physical, the mental, the spiritual side of us, right? And we have to continuously feed all three, right? I think it's just like you mentioned earlier, it's a journey. And in this journey, right, you continue to experience, right? Have the experience. So, when I started this journey initially, you won't believe it, Sargam, I had never meditated originally, right? It was something which always everyone would talk about, oh, successful people meditate. This is many, many years, about 20 years ago. And, my mind was always all over the place. So I don't know if I could. And I remember my first experience of meditating, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe, first of all, that I did it. And I couldn't believe that it felt so good. And over the years, there was different experiences. I remember my first experience of conscious walking, for example, where it was, each step was right. And then I saw that even when you do things mindfully, or when you're in a space of calmness and quietness, you start to feel so in tune and aligned, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's been an evolution, as we all are, and I think this is true for all of us, right? Is we slowly start to find different things, and as you start to work on, accept the fact that we're also spiritual beings, you start to see the beauty around that whole aspect. So now going into nature, for me, for example, is a very spiritual experience, right? Every time I go into, if I see, like, for example, every time my wife says, where do you want to go? I say, if I can be near a mountain with lake, and I mean, they have this vision. Every time I'm there, I'm in that feeling of calmness, right? But I could also be shooting a basketball or hitting a golf ball, right? In silence, and just enjoying the movement and just being there. What I think is, now, the more that I'm working on this, or I'm experiencing this, one of the things I'm noticing is, it's just being. You know what I'm saying? It's just being, as opposed to having an agenda and doing. And so initially it was, okay, let's tick this box. Let's go do this meditation sitting like this. Let's do that. Let's do this practice, that practice. And all of them were beautiful, and a lot of my friends are so good at some of these. I'm like, oh my God, right? But eventually for me, it moved to a space where it's just recognizing where I am and being there fully, and really in a space of love. So I have to add that for me. Whenever I feel that it's a very expansive state. And if you can be in that space where you feel light and free, it's a good space to nurture. So people ask me, how do you find that space? It's just go look for those spaces that make you feel lighter, that open you up and you feel like, wow, I want to do more of this, and do it. Go camping or do whatever it takes, to get in your space. Everybody has their own way. I don't think realistically you have to tell someone this is the right way or wrong way. I think everyone finds their own, space for nurturing the spirituality.
Beautiful. And like I said, you have a certain knowing. And I think we all have that knowing about that, that state of expansiveness or our own happy place. It's less about doing and more about being. And if people start, consciously experiencing their experiences,
Beautiful.
I think that is what is needed in order to experience true spirituality. It can be any way, people can follow any way. But yeah, beautifully said, Rajiv. So apart from that, I have a small rapid fire for you. Yeah. Also, I just want to know that if people want to reach out to you, Rajiv, you're based out in Dubai, right? So how can people reach out to you and and know more about your work?
Oh, awesome. So there's two different ways. One is my website, rajeevdaswani.com,
Mhm.
right? You can reach out to me. I'm available through all the social media through the same handle. I
Wow.
also have a happiness coaching center. And then we have a lot of amazing programs there with some amazing partners. Actually, Sargam's going to be on there too. So I'm really excited. With amazing, amazing different well-being practices, well-being at work, behavior tools. We work with a lot of corporates, Sargam, but over the last couple of years with the pandemic as well, we realized that there's no separation between individuals and corporates. So we started to add elements for individuals as well that enables them to find and transform themselves.
Right.
So yeah, you can go to happinesscoachingcenter.com. You can go to rajeevdaswani.com. Social media, yeah, I'm available. Look for me, you'll find me.
Great. So yeah, that's like I'll also be putting out the links to all the major channels where you can reach out to Rajiv. So thank you for that. Now moving on to a rapid fire. It's going to be interesting. So, what is one favorite book that you can recommend anyone and you've loved reading?
Oh, Journey of Souls was one of those books that just mesmerized me.
Wow.
A lot of people would think I would recommend a business book, but this is a book that for me played a very pivotal role. It was just a very, very beautiful, beautiful book. So Dr. Michael Newton, I loved it.
Wonderful. Your favorite movie that you can watch again and again?
Wow, that's a tough one. I love so many. Interesting. That's a rapid fire, and I can't rapidly answer this one. I don't know, Sargam. There's so many, yet I can't. Let's see. What do I say? Wow, let me pass on that one for now. I can't, yeah, there's too many to name. But I mean, look, I mean, there's been so many because I have also, I love the, passion of acting. And every time I watch a movie, I get into it, right? I just get into that. And I feel like you're stepping into someone else's life and experiencing it, right? Um, there's so many movies. There was one movie when I was young. I don't know if you guys ever remember. I don't know how, if you remember this movie. There's a movie called The Kid with a Broken Halo. Do you remember that movie?
No, I've not watched it.
Okay, it was a beautiful movie, and I was very young when I watched it.
Mhm.
There was this actor called Gary Coleman that was in it, and it was about three different lives, and
Wow.
they were not well. They were not experiencing a very good life. They're going through their own ups and downs, and this little angel comes on earth, and he comes into human form, and he steps into each one of their life. He shows up in their life somehow, right? And he reminds them why life is so beautiful.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was very young, but that's a movie that really stuck to me.
Mhm.
uh, I want my kids to watch it, so I got to find a way for them to get this. But it's a gorgeous movie, and
Uh,
there's so many other movies as well.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Okay, your favorite holiday destination?
Oh, okay. Well, I go back to Spain. For me, Spain brings me a lot of memories. So Spain is my first pick.
Your favorite superhero character?
Always Superman. I like the red cape. So yeah, I mean, it's always been Superman since I was a young kid.
Lovely. Your favorite quote?
My favorite quote.
Yeah.
I love, again, many quotes. Rumi is someone that I've always loved. And then there's obviously quotes by Gandhi that I always love as well. But then there's the famous one, right? That we all see all over the world. So I'll say it, to be or not to be. But if you really break that down, is put the emphasis on the be for a second and understand what it's talking about, and removes the doing quite a bit. So
Wow.
I kind of like that one, even though it's a very simple one, but it's one with a lot of depth.
Wonderful. Your personal inspirational, maybe idol or a person that you really feel inspired.
Um, for this one, I think I always go back to dad,
Mm.
just because he's always been a rock in my life,
Yeah.
Um, and I feel that, like with people out there, so many amazing human beings that have come through and inspired us. But to be able to touch and feel and hold on to, it's kind of nice to have. So for me, it's always been dad. Always inspired by his loving character. He's always been that way. He's always led by example for me. So kind of hold on to that one.
Great. A mentor who's really helped you in your life.
There was a professor in 10th grade that I remember was very strict and very hard on me.
Mhm.
And he may not even know this, but he was the guy who taught me to analyze.
Wow.
And many years from now, I look back and I am so grateful to him for being so tough, Sargam. He was so tough. I was like, I was always in trouble with him. He wouldn't let us write surface answers, never.
Mhm.
The way he inspired me to, well, obviously I was scared at that point in time, but when I look back today, the way he taught me to analyze and to look at things deeply really
Mhm.
changed my life. So I always am grateful to him for having, made that touch in my life.
That's interesting because for a professor to help you analyze, that's a skill, that most of us just develop, with experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sargam, it's that's what I always say is when you love what you do and then you do it with love, the impact is felt.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you would expect people to come up with a big name and mention these, but we forget those light warriors that in our life, because, throughout our life, there's going to be people who inspire you. Throughout your life, there's going to be people who mentor you.
Yeah.
Throughout your life, and if you have, like, when you ask me these questions, very tough, because for me to position one person, and you notice I'm not giving names, I'm just giving situations, and the reason why is because each one touches your life in so many different ways. So I don't like to diminish it by naming, but what I do tell you is that it's about being in awareness and noticing every single person that's impacted you, and then acknowledging how they impacted you, because each one of us comes in each other's lives
Yeah.
to impact each other. And it's just about being in awareness and recognizing what was the value that they came to share with you, so you can grow from it. And sometimes the experiences may not be fun, right? You might you might be like, oh my god, but later in
Yeah.
hindsight you look back, you're like, wow, I am so grateful for you.
Mm. Also, one question that I missed was, you being a coach, how do you think, people can benefit from having a coach and, at any point in their life?
I think that everyone, whether your title is a coach or not, should learn to hold the space for
Mm.
each other, right? When I set up the Happiness Center, and now it's a Happiness Coaching Center, I didn't set out to be a coach,
Yeah.
but through the journey, I realized the importance of being able to hold the space with grace.
Mm.
So I had to learn the skills. I went and got certified just so I could hold the space, right? And in that journey, what I realized is that if we are able to do that, and we do that with the right intention, and do it in a safe manner, then we literally can help someone move forward. Now, you see, in coaching, as everyone knows, the client is solutioning themselves. You're asking right questions and better questions in order to help them move forward. And a lot of people now, in today's world, are, as much as they're I don't want to say they're doing, but they're living in a world that it's really fast paced, right? Of
Right.
course, the pandemic has slowed things down quite a bit for a lot of us, but it's a very fast paced life. So you don't always in the process of doing, you don't always have the time to ask yourself such deep questions or maybe see things with clarity. Have the answers. It's just maybe you didn't have the right time to sit down and ask, the right questions, right? So a coach or anybody who is coaching, and if they're trained to coach, what ends up happening is you develop you flex the muscle, you could say, to start to ask, questions that can enable more and more clarity, right? Now, the beautiful thing about that is a lot of, the way that the world is moved now, so many people are going deeper in different areas. So you can literally start to find people who can direct you in different areas and help you with different spaces. And so that's something that's really unique now compared to what it was 10 years ago, right? Because so many amazing people out there who are willing to hold the space, right? So I will tell you that, yeah, as a coach, and why do people need coaches? Well, I think the truth is people need clarity. People need to have a roadmap and need to move forward to live towards a life of purpose and fulfillment and create impact. A coach or people who work with you can enable you to, should be able to hold the space for you to be able to figure out and move yourself forward to reach that, right? And that's why it's important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, I love this word holding, space for people. And I think it's not, spoken much about, even in the coaching and training industry. People are more about, doing again, set up a plan, do this, action out. But holding space is, helping the person to go deeper within themselves and bring out the best in them. That is so important because each and every person has potential. And I think in today's day and age, most of the time people are frustrated because they are not able to, live, their purpose or just be themselves.
That's right.
So, yeah, absolutely.
And Sakam, I add, I mean, one of the things that I found very useful, and I do this all the time, obviously with my practice, is that I like to show the mirror, right? Because I don't believe that, there is processes that people follow, and this is the process, this takes you from here to there, right? There's people who do that. That's great. Everyone has their own expertise. But to me, holding the space is being able to literally show someone the mirror and say, well, this is how you are showing up. Is this how you want to show up? What do you see, right? And where do you want to go? And then aligning it, for me, that is such a powerful tool because it helped me, right? So I'll give you an example. When I did a 360, my leadership 360, it was amazing to see the values that I knew that were showing up. And they were showing up. It was really nice. That shows up. Okay, cool. Then there was values that were showing up that I didn't know they were showing up, but people liked them. I was like, wow, that's really cool too. But Sargam, what surprised me the most was the values that I didn't know my people, my team wanted, that were not showing up, that they would like to show up. That was for me a game changer for expansion, because it was able for me to see like, oh, this is important for people around me, right? How can I apply it? Do I want to apply it? Is this important to me? Does this align to me? Do I resonate with it? So, when you show someone the mirror, what do we see in the mirror? So it's a really interesting study, right? A lot of people in the mirror will look at themselves and they will start to look at all the flaws.
Right.
They look at in depth, they look at the flaws. A lot of times you will only see what's in awareness, what you can notice, but you will not see things that you're not noticing because you're not paying attention to, right? So that to me is so powerful, is being able to show the mirror and to see what you see and to see what you don't yet see. Because when you see what you don't yet see is where the shift can happen for you.
Wow.
It makes sense. Now the question is, once you've identified that, then as a individual client, you figure out where you want to go and how you want to get there, what resources you need, how you want to get there. And that's where I feel the game changer happens, because you have to own that transformation. You see, a lot of times people will go to coach or you hear stories, right? Where they reach out and they'll say, hey, I want this problem. Can you help me fix it? The problem is the transformation cannot happen when it's done outside of you. You have to own it. You have to be part of it. You have to be accountable for it. No one's going to do it for you, right? Because only when you experience that journey can you experience the both the joy and the pains of going through that growth, right?
Right. Beautiful. I think this was an important question, and we really, added a lot of value by answering this, Rajiv. Okay, so that was my last question for this podcast, and it has been amazing, knowing you, Rajiv. And this podcast, I'm sure it's going to enlighten a lot of people who listen. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity, Sargam. I knew you were going to throw some tough questions at me. So thank you for doing that. I leave you with one thought. And the thought is that, if each and every one of us, just takes the moment to step into the light, in the sense that the light that we are, right? Each and every one is, right? And recognizes that it's really about being there, being in the moment, and being loving to yourself, right? Because Sargam, I see the work you're doing. It's so beautiful. And for people to just understand, is just go in there and accept yourself for who you are, love yourself for who you are, because self-love is such a big part of this journey, Sargam, and we shouldn't discount that, right?
Absolutely.
So that's my 2 words of advice as we seek how to go forward and how to find that space for ourselves, to move forward.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Rajiv. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you too.